Welcome into Shaping Reality. I'm Kimberly, and I'm joined by author and consciousness educator Penny Kelly. Hi, Penny. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we're talking about the look-see for May, which was so comprehensive. There was so much to cover.
yeah.
Before we dive into the topic that we discussed before we came on, do you have anything in particular that's bubbled up since then that you think is worth mentioning?
Um, I would say one thing, and this is just based on some comments and reactions, not just from the look-see, but from the look-see and the conference that I just came back from, at the Arlington Institute. And it's the shock, I guess I would call it, that people seem to still have around the idea that there might be some ETs or others. And I just want to say there are. And don't think of that as something really weird or unusual, because it's not. And I'll be talking with Paul Wallace on Thursday, and then again next week, and we were kind of on the same page in terms of, wow, people really think that that's still something that's out of the box, and it's not. It's something that is happening on a regular basis. There's a reason for that. That ET agenda is to get us to wake up. Part of it is to wake up. Some of it is to get us ready to meet with them. That's the major thing right there. Are we ready to meet and not freak out? So, yeah, there's a lot of thinking and a lot of prep, I suppose, that has to happen. But that, I would just say, people, yeah, there are ETs. They are everywhere. They are working with us. Thousands, tens of thousands of people have been picked up, and that's really a good thing.
Yeah. Let's drill down into that a little bit, Penny, because
Okay.
I watch a lot of I cover a lot of information. I do a lot of research constantly.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing is that the amount of ET, the desire for them to connect with us and to come in and help, they're almost working harder at waking up humanity than humanity is waking up at is working at waking up humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm very impressed with that. First of all, I was like just dumbstruck that they would spend so much time and effort to help us
Oh,
when we've created kind of a mess. I mean, a mess has been created. I don't know if we created it. I think a mess has been created.
right.
There's definitely big interest in Earth. We're important. They really, really want us to succeed and become a more mature
Yes,
race of people.
they do.
Here are the questions that I have in my mind when I'm thinking about this, based on
Okay.
what you're saying, is that they want to connect. I'm open. I'm open, and I've said that very clearly. Do
Yep.
we need to do more than that, or is that enough?
They are very methodically working their way through as many people as they can possibly introduce themselves to. And of course, they do it usually when you're asleep. And usually, if you freak out, then in order to reduce your stress, they will erase parts of your memory, and maybe it'll come back slowly later. But for that moment, it's like, no, don't stress them out. But that they are very interested in us for many, many reasons. One of the big reasons is that we humanoids are responsible for each other, for taking care of one another. You know that saying that came in the Bible about "I'm not my brother's keeper," that Cain said supposedly, which is really not true at all. But and people don't know what Cain really was. So there's a whole bunch of religious story piled on top of that whole thing. But from the point of view of people from elsewhere, we are our brother's keepers, and they live by that. When you can make everything, this is actually something I was pointing out on the weekend. when you can manifest everything you need, when you have everything in a timely manner, when you can fix everything that needs to be fixed, what do you do with yourself? What happens then? So if you have everything taken care of and you don't have this frantic worry, stress that dogs you all the time, what happens is you discover love. And that love then expands to those people that are like children, and we are like children. And so there's this massive effort to help us grow, help us understand reality differently, get out of the grip of the corruption, and really make a world that's worthy of making. And so everybody, like the 3, 4, 5, 6 dozen different ET groups are keeping their eye on us and watching and trying to help and intervening where they can, because they can't always intervene. So that's an important point. I've heard that question many times. It's even something that Paul was asking, why would they be interested in us? Because we're the same as they are. We're all humanoid people together.
I have a question about, clearly they're same but different,
Yeah.
little different body structure, different makeup. I'm reading that book that you talked about, Rachel's Eyes.
Oh, very good.
And
Okay.
in it, one of the ETs said that other races have bred out emotion
Yeah.
because it is so volatile. And my immediate emotional response to that was, but it's also very beautiful.
It is. And it's a source of power. When you have access to technology that can do everything, you tend to erase or to look down on the emotional side. But that's the specialty of the Earth humans, is keeping their physicality, managing their emotions, and becoming these extraordinary beings who can do everything that a lot of ETs do without giving up the physicality and without giving up the, that emotional power that we have. And people come from all over the cosmos. We're famous for our emotion. And they come and they borrow. If they, this is, I was trying to explain this to Nellie, and I probably shouldn't say too much because I don't have the right words, but we will typically, when a civilization grows to where it's okay, it's either going to collapse or it's going to have to evolve, then it typically is going to break into different groups, each one interested in something a little different or different approach to life. And actually, this is something I've known for a long time, ever since I first read about Chaco Canyon. What happened to the people who lived in Chaco Canyon? Well, it's one of those questions that somebody asked, and I happened to read that. And as soon as I did, as soon as I took on that question, that whole window of information opened, and I could see, oh, they're still there. They're still here, I guess I should say, but they're not in this dimension. They went up a dimension. They went up a step. And others have done the same thing for thousands of years. So, and they're not, when you have 8 billion people, you could, even if you only had half that many, you break up into 5 or 6 groups, and then they break up some more, and they break up some more. And my example is the technocrats like Yuval Harari and people like that.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't need humans anymore. And I'm like, okay, so you go over there and practice that.
We'll start with you.
Yeah. It's really important to allow them to pursue that path, because every human group that becomes a breakaway civilization have something valuable to offer to the whole. And that's what I see is likely to happen. And so there's quite a few people now on the planet that are interested in the tech, they want implants and all that. There are implants, but you can't get an implant from a group that isn't honorable, or you've lost, you become their slave, their clone. So here we are. There's quite a few people that are saying, no, I want the spiritual development. And that's been the great gift of religion, believe it or not. Even though religion has a lot of problems and a lot of pitfalls and a lot of stories that they made up, there's still the gift of people understanding, millions of people understanding that there's something that they can sense that's greater than what they are now. And there's a place, it's really not a place, it's a way of being that brings you to a place of bliss, or, you live in this joy and this contentment. And so those people are maybe not interested in the technocratic thing. They want the real, the real thing, which is the consciousness that unfolds and becomes the full potential. So what I see is that we're likely to break up. And so back to the ET thing, I kind of got off track there. They come back a couple thousand years later because they have pursued a path that took a lot of them down, and they weren't able to replenish or restore. And so they come back and they get DNA, eggs, sperm. They literally will pick up people and bring them on board. They kidnap people, some of them. Not the good ones. The good ones don't really do that. But they are looking to increase their population, and they invite people on board in the same way that Biden is inviting people over the southern border. That whole thing about population, which was, we're overpopulated and we got too many people on the planet. That's not the case. That just is not true anymore. Everybody's inflating their numbers so that other nations will be afraid to attack because, wow, they got 1 billion people that they could use to fight. Well, they may have 1 billion people, but half of them, or more than half, are over 75 years of age, and they're not into fighting, and they're not capable of fighting. And so there's this effort now to get people to come in, and they're starting to pay people that have babies. And you're just starting to see the demographic story shift just a little bit. So it's like, okay, so ETs are saying, we're going to, we'll help you, but could you help us? Could we get a little DNA?
So my question is, has the attitude about that emotional component shifted? Have they decided that maybe a little bit of emotion might be a good thing? I mean, I don't want to live in a Spock world.
No, they do appreciate that. They love our spunk. And what, especially among the Greys, what they're realizing is that it's not the best thing to get people to clamp down on their emotions. The best thing is get them to manage them.
And maturity, emotional maturity.
Right.
We don't have on this planet.
Right.
Intentionally, we've been engineered to, or definitely what we're in right now, we've been engineered to have this unhealthy emotional positioning on the planet.
Yeah, and the other thing is that emotional spunk, that emotional whatever, that is the source of our creativity.
Yeah.
And they end up, I don't want to say they're in a rut, but when you have everything you need and you've learned to tamp down on your emotions, life is kind of sterile. And so creativity is prized like you wouldn't believe. So that is something they try to nurture and they love what happens with us. They love some of the stuff we do.
I
So
would imagine it's surprising and unpredictable, and that's probably
it
kind
is.
of fun.
It
Yeah.
is. And they find that challenging as well as interesting.
Yeah. So as
Yeah.
we're wrapping up on the whole ET thing, yes, they are here.
Yes, they
They're
are.
in the ocean, they're in the earth, they're on the planet. I
Yeah.
mean, I now have kind of a little game I do. It's like I'm looking for them out there
Oh, very good.
in the grocery store, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
those who would like to connect, Penny, do they
Uh,
need to do any more than just have the intention?
those who would like to connect are likely to be people who have already connected, and that's where that desire comes from. But they've been kind of erased.
Kind of wiped. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's, every so often I think to myself something like, well, I haven't heard from my people for a while, or I haven't gotten any messages or something like that. And nothing happens, nothing happens. And then boom, there'd be 3 or 4 things that happen all in a row. So that's the way that it goes. They are so busy that, they're not coming around just to chat. But if you're ready to take another step in terms of your own awakening, in terms of your own readiness, just put that message out there. And when they come back around, because they go through a series of, I guess I'll say, they go through their lists. So they'll come back around to you. And sometimes you will get a message that is just as clear, as powerful. Other times you'll see somebody or something, or you'll see a craft that, buzzes you, or even just comes down and hangs there for a minute and then goes whoosh. And it's like, yep, did you see us? We're here. So that's a response to that desire to connect.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to kind of what we talked about the topic for tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a minute or two to set it up, and then
Okay.
you
Yeah.
roll from there.
Okay.
What kind of started it for me are I was aware of you bringing up the concept of not doing, and you've been talking about that for a while. And
Yeah.
what Penny is talking about when she says not doing, that means us, the population,
I
the people, just stop. We stop playing the game.
Yep.
We just sit down, maybe hang out together, have a little picnic. We just stop.
Right.
And recently, in all the research I do, I saw an interview with Catherine Austin Fitts. If you're interested in seeing that interview, you can find it on usawatchdog.com. usawatchdog.com, Catherine Austin Fitts. And she was talking to Greg, the host, and said, what's going on in the US and probably around the world, but she was specifically talking about the US. The corruption is so deep, it doesn't have anything to do with an election. An election is not going to fix it.
No, it's not.
And what she started talking about is how deep and widespread the corruption is. We are no longer a representative government. They don't listen to us. The government doesn't. And she brought up the point of we're looking at sane versus insane. And what our government system is insane. And she talked about we need to start taking measures like states holding in escrow federal taxes until the act gets cleaned up, and those
Right.
types of actions. So I saw that interview. It's worth watching if you're interested. Then I saw a clip from Billy Carson, and what he was talking about really fascinated me. He was saying things like, what if we all got to do some planning and we got everything we needed for about a month, and then we just sat down for a month?
Yes.
And we hung out with our neighbors and we had outdoor barbecues. Nobody went to work. Nobody bought anything.
Right.
Nothing. You don't turn on the TV. You don't put gas in your car.
Yep.
Nothing. We all just sit and have a nice month. And And he said what would happen is we would then have the negotiating power. All right,
Absolutely.
these are our terms. Every single one of you rats that's been lying for years and filling your pockets, you're out of there, that sort of thing. But anyway, the concept of not doing, of us just saying, "That's it."
Mhm.
It's like having 6 kids and they're just creating a race. It's like, "That's it. Everybody go to bed." It's like, "That's it. We've had it." And
Yep.
we just stop. And it started me thinking about, Penny, of, well, why don't we do that?
Yeah,
Why don't we just decide a day or a month? And
that's right.
it's not gonna take 100% of us
No.
to do it. It would take a very small percentage of we're just enough. That's enough.
Yep.
So take it from there.
So
It's
true.
nice that that concept is getting out there and people are talking about it.
Yeah.
Personally, from the angles that I've looked at it, I don't see any other solution.
No. There really is. Well, we could have a war.
But that's
So,
just continuation of what we've been.
right.
It's nothing different.
It's
It's
not
just
what we want.
no.
Yeah. I think the that whole concept of not doing that is what we have to do to teach ourselves where our power is and how much of it we have. Because everything that we do is designed to, what I like to say is shovel money and power uphill to the boys at the top, or the girls, or the people at the top. And that includes all of our work, our jobs, careers, all of our money, all of our food, all of our medicine, all of our trade and what I'll call with other countries. Everything that we do is set up so that we will make somebody else rich, not us. And even though money is not the be all and end all, should not be, it has become the only way to survive because everybody's been educated to not know how to survive. That part of the education has been skipped, and that is a terrible, terrible mistake. If you do not know how to survive in the lap of nature, and you're just having to get money in order to buy food and buy water and buy land and buy groceries or, beds or shoes or cars, whatever it is, and the people who are benefiting from all those sales, then they pull the plug, then what do? You can't last very long without water. You can't last very long without food. You can't go very far without shoes and cars and gasoline. So here we are. And it's really a situation where if the world it just slowed down, let's say, I don't know, what are there, 3 million people in the US? 330 million people, something like that. Let's just say that 50% of the adults, which might be 30% of the population, just said, no, we're not doing that. We'll keep the lights on. And, some of us don't care if the lights are on or not. And we have food and we have water, and you need to come and talk with us because we're not playing this game anymore. And the game is stacked against us. So if you don't realize where the power is, it's in your hands, you can't use it. So here we are. This whole concept of not doing really means not continuing the world as we know it. That's a big pill to swallow. So when you are dependent on drugs, and you're out of drugs, you have to keep going with that. If you, if you're in a place where the weather is bad, you have to pay attention to the weather and compensate for that. But beyond that, there's a lot of leeway. There's a lot. And I think if we could reconnect with one another, there would be some very surprising and maybe even tearful moments of joy in that reconnection. And the message to the, I read at one point how many dollars changed. It was something about the velocity of money and what that velocity was, and therefore how many dollars were changing hands at any given time. And I was just stunned. It's like, oh wow. Even and the reason it caught my eye was because they were talking in this article. This is a long time ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, about if it slowed even a very tiny percent, like 2 or 3%, the cabal, the powers that be were freaking out. Like, oh my God, what are we doing? When you have such a big volume, 2 or 3% is a lot. And they are kind of cutthroat in the way that they do things. So if we slowed it, say 40%, they wouldn't know what to do. And that, I think, is where we're going to end up going. So I thought maybe we were getting there not last year, maybe in 2021 and 2022, where everybody was kind of in their houses. And I was like, oh my God, the lockdown is really a sit down. But everybody was anxious to get out of that. And there was no understanding of the power that was in our hands at that moment. So
there was no understanding.
yeah. So
People were
here we
just
are.
freaked out. Yeah.
Right. And I think rightly so. And I think now, because we've seen so many tragic results of that whole fake medicine thing and fake vaccine thing, we are in a place where it's really sad, but that provides some of the oompa to say, you buggers, I'm done with that. So I've said to people, I'm off the debt grid. I'm off the medical grid. I don't really carry an insurance. I pay for stuff as I go. I think that's how we have to live. And so if you have a whole lot of debt, what do you do? What do you do then? So you end up sitting
You walk
down.
away from it.
You walk away.
Yeah.
But they just
It's
demonstrated
just
that
numbers on a computer.
that is true.
Mhm.
That's true. But what is their concern? It's like, are the slaves behaving? Are they in their chains? Is the ball and chain hooked up? What's the problem? Get back to work.
Well,
That's
and there's that saying, Penny, it's like a country that's how many trillions of dollars in debt wants to give you a credit score?
yeah. I didn't even think of that. Oh my God, yeah.
It's like
That's crazy.
it's ridiculous, and I think what we're highlighting right here is
Yeah.
the ridiculous rules we've been playing by.
Yeah. And they're making all the rules, and people are just like baby birds. They're swallowing all that garbage. They're not even questioning, what are you bringing me? What are you trying to get me to do, to believe, to
Or
not?
and what do I get in exchange?
Oh yeah, you get trouble. You get harassed if you don't do what's expected. And if you do, they tell you, oh, you have a nice credit score. So yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
So
All right, I wanna bring up something that I think about often.
okay.
In my opinion, if you can change a roll of toilet paper, you can
Okay.
you've got all the skills needed to plant a potato.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm pretty much
I
thinking
agree.
most people can change a roll of toilet paper. Here's my point when I'm saying that, is that we've been convinced that we're incapable, and
I know.
we believed it. if you've got a 15 gallon grow pot and some dirt, some soil in your backyard, you can grow potatoes. I know it because I just did
Yep.
it. So
Yep.
we're moving into a time where no one's looking around and is happy. Everybody feels like this is ridiculous. I don't even know what the tax receipts were for 2024. I would imagine that most accountants would say I've got like 20% of the business I used to have.
Wow. Yeah,
So
I haven't really looked up those kinds of answers, but that's an important point. People are dropping out. And some of it is because of the war in Israel. Some of it is Ukraine. Some people are starting to realize that money isn't going to do anything in Ukraine. It's going into fake contractor pockets and then gets fed right back to the politicians here. So why are they so anxious to send money? Because it's money for them.
mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and those potholes aren't getting fixed.
no.
That infrastructure not getting fixed, but they're still charging you the same amount.
Yep.
So it's like, how much is it gonna take for us to all to say, "Okay, that's enough?"
Right.
I've pretty much said that's enough. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important point. I think when when I look at the kinds of what I'll call attitudes that people are developing and the anger that is beginning to seep through, that does concern me. So I brought that up in the look-see. In fact, I'm very concerned about the level of anger that I see and hear in people. And what's really sad is that is being picked up by our children and our teens and our young people. And I heard stories this weekend about what's going on in the schools. I was just like, oh my gosh. So principals have declared that teachers may not send anybody to the office for disciplinary action. They have to handle it in the classroom. And teachers are dropping like flies. The children, the children are out of control. There was a woman I had breakfast with yesterday, and her sister was a teacher who had taken, I think, a year off, went back, and I don't know if she lasted the year or not. I don't think so. She said she walked into the classroom the first day. It was like just a pile of arms and legs, a free-for-all in a fight. And they were not listening. Everybody was, that wasn't fighting, was watching porn on their computer laptops. Some were talking on the phone because they all had their cell phones. And she said there was no way to get control over what was going on in the classroom. Parents didn't care. Principal and the system didn't care. So she just said, I'm done almost immediately before she even got started. So that's really one of the things I saw with the robes, which really bothered me, because education is what brings children into the circle, the family of our civilization. And if that civilization is not educating their children, then the whole thing will collapse. And it usually only takes about 2 or 3 generations. And we are now in the second generation of those kids who didn't learn anything. They just showed up. So it's really kind of sad.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if we were to, what would a organized not doing look like? And how would it get organized? Have you thought about that?
A little bit, a little bit. In some of my, where's the book? In some of my thought for the day things, I've read from a book called Sabbath by Wayne Muller. And I have several times thought, okay, if we said we were going to not do anything, even for a week, the robe said it would only take 3 days. But if we said we're going to not do, everybody's going to stay home, no traffic, no transactions, no nothing. How could we organize that without getting into trouble?
Yeah,
And
that's what I'm wondering.
so I think if we said, okay, we're planning a Sabbath, and we're gonna have a Sabbath day, and it's gonna be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on July 15th or some date, we might be able to kind of deflect any efforts to disturb that, just blow off the criticism and just carry it out. Say, no, we're gonna, even if we said we're gonna stay home and pray, I don't know anybody that would do that, but most people would stay home and sleep, stay home and eat, watch TV, relax, laugh a little, maybe. But that might be a way to start it without really attracting too much counterparty pressure, and then make the day flexible, right up until the day when it's going to begin. Give people lists of, have these things on hand. This is what you need for 3 days. And then there has to be, I think, a little bit of discussion about what kind of pressures you might feel. And because people feel guilty over every time they stand up for themselves, they feel bad. I'm like, no, that you can't do that. So there'd have to be some psychological preparation, just a little bit of chat about that. And then after the list and a little bit of psych preparation, then there needs to be some kind of, this is what we're trying to accomplish. What are those goals? What's the number one thing we want if the powers that be came to us and said, we need you to go back to work. We need you to spend money. We need. What would we say? We would have to be ready to say right back to them, okay, we hear what you need. This is what we need. That should be defined, and it shouldn't be complicated. It should be just 3 or 4 things that are critically important. Shut the border down. Number 1, we'll go back to work when the border is closed. That's one possibility. Another is, I don't know, erase everybody's debt. Declare a jubilee or something that makes it clear that we're taking care of ourselves. And that once we have the preparation, physical preparation, and once we have the psychological preparation, and then and we know what we're asking for, then we just do it. So then let's say that the powers that be target a few people and say, we're going to make an example. You didn't show up, because of you, this happened, and, that kind of thing. We would have to, or maybe that actually belongs in the list of, you will not do any retribution. Nobody will get targeted. But if they did, we don't want somebody in jail like the January 6ers with no real crime and somebody refusing to let them out, or Julian Assange trying to do something that will help humanity and gets punished to the nth degree. So that kind of, what is the plan if they target some people and put them in jail, or that kind of thing? That plan might be a longer sit out or sit in or sit down or whatever. But if push comes to shove, we would have to be willing to face the fact that maybe we don't want to go back to that old system at all.
See, that's what I think the power would be, the hidden power.
Right.
Is that if we let's say we were generous, Penny, the first time around, and we took 7 days.
Okay.
7 good days.
Okay.
And let's say we circulated a flyer with
Yeah.
suggestions what to do with those 7 days.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
take your kids down to the park and look for as many different wildflowers as you can find.
Have a marshmallow thing in the backyard.
Yeah, roast marshmallows with 7 neighbors and get to know what they do and who
Yeah.
they are.
Something.
So we had this whole list of all these fun local neighborhood activities that you
Oh,
could
yeah.
do, and then people would start saying, "Oh my gosh, this is what life's supposed to feel like. This
Yeah.
is what life is supposed to be."
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, nobody wants to go back. And the negotiations change from, "Okay, if you close the border, we'll go back to work," to, "Okay, you close the border and give us all your money and run away, and then we won't hurt you."
Okay. Ooh. Okay. I had another thought also. Um, if if we end up saying we're not going back, we need a plan that says what kind of world we want to build. If they have certain power and we're going to grant them, we're being generous here, okay? And so we're going to grant them the power to help us make the new world. What would the first thing be that we would do? What would the first thing, maybe it's like everybody gets food. Everybody gets food distributed, so nobody's left out. There's just no need for billionaires to have billions of dollars sitting in an account or even on paper and people starving, people without air conditioning, people without heat where it's cold, people without cars that you can trust. There's just no reason for that. And so maybe the plan would be, okay, here's what we want. We're building a new world, you know, either help us or get out of the way. We're not going back to that old thing. So that, we
So
don't have to do planning.
I see it as, let's say if we took, 1 day the first month, and the second month we take 2 days,
Oh, I like that.
and the third month we take 3 days, and then what I
Yeah.
see as the most powerful change is not what the powers that be would do. It's the change in direction and the change of what I want for my life for the people participating. And then they're gonna start talking about it to their neighbors who didn't participate, and then they're gonna start participating. And
Okay.
people are all of a sudden going to start realizing how far away they've come from a life that feels good to them.
Yeah,
And once you know that, you can never go back.
I know.
So
Yeah.
the power for me is almost the realizations
Yeah.
of those participating, not anything to do with the powers that be, because you know what? The the sad truth for them is we could be done with them in a hot second.
I know.
In a
Yeah.
hot second, and it would not be something they would choose.
That's true. That's really true. There's not very many of
No.
them, and there's an awful lot of us.
Yeah.
So one of
And
the
an awful
problems,
lot of angry S's.
yeah, yeah, that's true. So I
Mhm.
see two problems that we would have to be ready for. One would be if we took one day and they figured out a way to counter that, we might not be able to do the 2 day or the 3 day or the 4, etc. So there was actually some talk this weekend. Some people in some pretty interesting, well-connected places were saying similar things. Kind of need to start with a minimum of 3 days
Okay.
so that they can't counter. And I thought, oh, okay, so that might be something that is really important. Um, But when you put it all together, I think your strategy of, let's say we want this, and if not everybody participates, but some people are watching, and the next time we do it, they're joining, and then they tell a few more. I like that. I like that strategy. That's a good one. So that would allow people who are afraid that it would blow up in their face to observe and see that it's okay.
And there's always going to be those who are more willing to do something different,
Right.
and those who aren't. I mean, that's the way it happens all the time.
All the time.
What I would be interested in, and we're just spitballing here, brainstorming here,
Yeah.
is
I know.
I know there are people out there that strategy is their job.
That is true.
They are strategists.
I know some of them.
And this kind of thing is exactly what they do.
That's right.
And if we sit down and say, okay, this is the resources we have, 30 million adults,
Yeah.
and this is the goal, the end goal. How do we get there?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually called scenario planning.
Yeah,
And
which is what John does.
yeah, actually that's true. And he's
Mhm.
a futurist on top of that.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing. If you want to be successful, you have to go through all the steps and say, okay, how do we succeed with this and not shoot ourselves in the foot?
Right.
So yeah.
And everyone over in the chat is all for it. Just I've been reading.
Oh, I
Yeah.
haven't. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody wants a 4-hour, 4-day work week.
I can go with that.
I'm thinking that what I would do pretty much the whole time. I'm in. We are doing it. Think first and spread the ideas. That's my job.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm always thinking about how we could do this.
Well,
Fierce and limitless.
I think if Catherine Austin Fitz is talking about this, and this is just my little private survey, I'm going to say that there's about 27, 28 states that are ready to back up their people. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. There are groups of people that are working now, getting ready to clean up the mess because they see a mess is coming. And so that they could be pulled in and brought into, like, okay, how do we pull this together kind of thing. But I don't know that you or I could do much more than let people know, okay, here's the dates, here's what you need, here's the list, here's the psychological thinking you need to do beforehand. What goals do you want to achieve? What would you say your top 3 things are? I'd be willing to bet people would say, I want out of debt. I want off the debt grid. So, if that's the case, then, or maybe they want drugs to be reasonable cost, or just alternatives to drugs, or maybe, some med beds or something like that.
Okay, so I'm like you. I have 0 debt. I pay cash for everything.
I do too.
I just don't play the game.
Right.
I go to the grocery store for very few things. It's like I pretty much source what I get locally. I just picked up a whole bunch of grass-fed meat today from a guy that, it's incredible.
Yes.
So what comes up for me is, what do I want? I want them out.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Okay.
want them out. I want clean water. I want the food supply cleaned up. I want all of the suppressed medications, all the suppressed cures released.
Okay. Yep.
I want the technology. I saw there's a video, Penny, going around of that flight MH something something that just disappeared.
Oh, yeah. Malaysia 370.
Yeah, and have you seen it? There's a video, and I can send you a link, where the craft is moving through the air, and there's what looks like orbs, but they're probably smaller alien craft circling the nose of the plane, and then the plane disappears. So
Oh, I
it
think I saw
yeah,
that
I mean,
a
this
while
is
ago.
clearly kind of frequency technology.
Yeah,
So a girlfriend sent it to me and I watched it. I said, "Yeah, this is what other civilizations have that we don't have."
it's true.
But the fact is that we do have it and
That's
we
true.
paid for it,
Yeah.
and we're driving around in rubber-wheeled cars and using 1940s cell phone technology. So
Mhm.
we're
Right.
paying not only for our enslavement and for our physical demise, but we're
Yep.
paying for technology that we never even hear about, let alone get to use. So if that's not enough to say, "I'm done,"
Yeah.
I
That
don't know what is.
yeah. That I if we didn't well, let me kind of take a little tangent here for a minute. If we don't go in the direction that's positive, we are headed in a direction that involves civil war. And it's not civil war between us.
It's us
It's
and the governments,
it's people getting rid of governments, not just the US, but everywhere. Everywhere.
which is
And
needed, which is a needed.
yeah, we need some how about some truth? How
Yeah.
about no more chemtrails? How about stop assassinating people that are good people that have good ideas and that are willing to stand up? All of that kind of stuff. Um, that's where we're headed. And that lasts 2025, 26, and it's pretty much over by 2027. Unless something better comes along, that's where we're headed. And I keep seeing that and saying that, and people are like, oh no, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay, I want to believe, but when I go look, I don't see that. I see that there's anarchy and it gets out of control. Um, and then it's not just the government, but it's all the people the government brought in. It's not is not good. And then there's gangs and there's all kinds of stuff. So, and people are leaving left and right because they're sick, and the stress is just too much. So, all in all, hang on a second. Okay, getting phone calls, and I have my lights on my tablet, so therefore I have to have a tablet. so Um, so in the long and the short of it, we really have time to put something together, and we have some windows of opportunity, and we certainly have the motivation and enough anger just to stand up and say, "That's enough." Just like you said earlier, that's enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this game anymore. Um, the people who don't get it, that's another one of my big concerns. How do we nurture them? How do we bring them along? They would look at everybody that's doing, standing up. I'm going to say everybody that's not doing and say, you're wrecking everything and it's all your fault. And they would end up getting angry with us or whoever they perceive to be, the people that are the ringleaders, etc. But when you have such a corrupt situation, there's not a whole lot of options. And there are people who love Biden and think that he's the best president we ever had. I don't know what they're looking at. I can't imagine what they see or what maybe they just don't want to see, anything that is messy, or hurtful or harmful or ugly. But and I've been looking at that stuff for a long time, and And I've asked myself 1,000 times, am I fooling myself? Am I not seeing the beauty? Where's the, people, where's the people that are celebrating life and that are in a place of joy, and the beauty of the cities? It disappeared somewhere. It's awful. So I'm looking for evidence, physical, verbal, visual, kinesthetic evidence that we are in a state of unfolding of joy, and I don't see it. I see more and more people who are hungry, who are sick, who are living on the streets, who don't have what they need. That's not what I call a successful country or a successful government.
Well,
So,
and it goes back to what Catherine says, this is insane.
yeah,
What we're living is
it is.
insane.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So not doing is a very, very reasonable approach. And it could be done in a way that's not only very successful, but very classy. So very powerful.
And I
And
think
I
it's
think people would love it.
empowering. It's going in the right
Yeah,
direction. It's moving
right.
in a direction of what feels good, of what's
Yeah.
nurturing for the human, what is sane, what is reasonable, what is healthy, what is mature.
Oh, yeah. And where people can tap into their own depth
Mhm.
and do so with a sense of what I call sass, be a little sassy. Not rude, not arrogant, just with this sense of, yeah, look what I did. I'm celebrating something that I managed to accomplish.
Yeah, I miss those
Let me
days.
celebrate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
So
I went to, I just want to mention, went to a wedding in the family not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And I was really, really stunned that, this is a very successful couple. We had the wedding and the reception was at the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. And I said to my nephew, so where are you going on your honeymoon? And he said, or I said, how much time do you have for your honeymoon? And he said, oh, we got a month. And I said, oh, where are you going? He said, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? He said, well, we didn't make any plans. And I was like, okay, you didn't make any plans. And that was kind of like the second or third time I've heard that kind of response from young people that have the means to make plans. And they're just, I don't know, that to me says nobody's trusting tomorrow.
oh,
They're going by the seat of their pants. They're just going to live for the day. And so I said to him, so what's the plan for tonight? And he said, well, we're probably not going to get any sleep, so we'll probably sleep in. And we're going to plan to start in Asheville, North Carolina. And I was just kind of struck by that. It's like, okay. And who knows where they'll end up. And I haven't heard. So, but that's typical of some of my grandchildren who are, grown and have children and teens, and nearly adult children of their own. They don't plan. They don't believe in a future.
yeah. And Penny, I've thought about that too. It's like wondering about the perception of younger generations. And and I think, do younger people think it's normal that a healthy 40-year-old just
Oh,
dies suddenly? It,
a lot of them are not paying attention to that.
well, that's their normal. So now are they now going to think that's normal? That's not normal.
That's not normal. No,
And
that's really sad.
it's like there's a
Mm.
conference Sedona I was thinking about going to in October,
Oh,
but I thought, why do I don't even know if we're going to be able to fly by then. So
Uh,
I understand that we don't make plans because the world doesn't feel like a safe
oh,
place.
yeah. Okay. Well, look how many years ago I was told don't fly, don't get on another airplane, not until we tell you it's safe. And I haven't flown. I drive everywhere. Like, oh my God. Okay. But um, I thought, are you guys exaggerating something? But then I would hear, um, actually, I knew there was there was an airplane that was taken out in New York. Um, I think it was Flight 800 of some airline. And that was the whole plane. Everybody on it was lost because they were after one person who was on that plane. And that's just, they said, no, they're taking people out using planes. We don't want you to be collateral damage. So that was the first thing I heard. Then, then I started noticing and paying attention and thought, okay, well, it's got to be safer now. And then the whole thing with Boeing started, doors falling off and wings falling off and in flight. It's like, oh, somebody's not doing quality control. Somebody, and maybe it's the effect of getting the thing in the arm where you're just not there and you just don't care and you're not doing your job and you're not following the rules. That's happening in the hospitals. That's really a scary thing. And I do have some inside track to what's going on in the medical world. It's like, oh, holy cow. People are just there for the paycheck. They don't care about the patients. They break the rules and hope they won't get caught. Those rules are in place to make sure that there's a successful outcome for everybody that goes into that hospital. And the, in the OR, the operating suite for most hospitals is the only part of the hospital making money. The entire rest of the system is losing. And so the powers that be up, the CEO and all that, they don't want to disturb that so they don't crack down. So it's becoming critical. It's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's got to change. Well, we're past our hour.
All right. Okay.
Anything you want to say to kind of wrap up? I like the idea of not doing. The one thing I want to say before we wrap up, Penny, is if Catherine Austin Fitch is bringing this up, that she runs in a pretty powerful circle.
Yeah, she does.
That tells me that there's some pretty powerful people that may be looking at this as a viable solution.
Yeah. I heard conversation once or twice over the last 4 or 5 months about this whole 3-day sit down, not do scenario that that really struck me as like, oh, wow. Okay. And like we were talking earlier, it takes a long time for something to trickle down into the consciousness of the population. Maybe it's time.
Well, it certainly beats a prolonged 3-4 year civil war.
Oh my. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, let's just not do the Civil War. Let's do something. Let's do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
People,
we can just take it back.
Yeah.
And just like, that's it. We're done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I'll say this. I can still feel something very close. I'm going to say within the next 90 days, something very big. I don't know what that is, but it's a game changer. And everybody goes in a different direction. So I'm kind of watching, listening, got my intuitive nose to the ground. I just have this feel. It feels like it's something that could be very good, and so I'm hoping that that's not an illusion on my part. It would be so nice to have something good happen for a change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hang in there, people.
Yeah. Thank you. Any final words before we sign up for this month?
Um, consider what would you do with a Sabbath day or 3 or 5? What would you do? How would you spend that time? Would you use it to take care of yourself? Hopefully you would. Really take care of yourself. Catch up on something that you love to do, or fix something that you have wanted to fix and just haven't had time to get all the stuff out, or paint a room or something. Do something fun, interesting. So,
Yeah. And change the world at the same time.
yeah. Yes.
Organize those drawers and change the world. Let's do it.
Amen. Yeah.
All right, Penny, thank you so
Okay.
much for tonight. Everyone, thank you for watching. We really appreciate you stopping by. I hope you found
Yeah.
this fun, useful, and helpful.
Yeah. We're trying to back up Catherine with this whole idea of not doing. So a few more people on board would be nice. And I don't know if she's taking comments or signing people up for anything, but I may actually
Send
write,
her a letter.
yeah, and say, hey,
And we could also get in touch with Martin Armstrong and have him
okay.
game it through Socrates.
Oh, that, yeah. Okay. That would be good. That would be
We
very
need
interesting.
big hitters to start
Yeah.
putting this all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next month. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
I know.
Bye-bye.